Hey guys, I'm Tim, and in this video I'm going to install this 12-volt undermount air conditioning unit in this 2023 all-wheel drive Ford Transit. This is actually the third undermount AC unit that I've installed. We love that they're so efficient, they're powerful enough to cool off the extended length Transit, and we like that they're underneath so we can maximize our solar capacity on the roof. It's been over 2 years since I installed their original system in our previous Ford Transit build, so I want to give a bit of an update and a review as well as show you how to install their new system, which is much more streamlined. So first thing I do is print off the instruction manual and get to laying out all the components so I know exactly what hoses go where. Almost everything comes in the kit, but you are going to need to purchase a couple things. One is a PEX crimper for the cinch clamps. You'll need 2-gauge wire. This is 5 feet and I'm hoping it's long enough for my application. You'll need some larger than 2.5-inch hose clamps for the ducting. I also picked up some PVC pipe for running my hoses and wires through the floor. So just a quick overview, it comes with the compressor and condenser, which get mounted underneath the van, and then the evaporator, which gets mounted inside the van and works to distribute the air throughout. I'm impressed with the quality of everything and think it's awesome they supply these custom Ford Transit mounting brackets. Now this is the thermostat that was included when I purchased the kit, but they now offer a sleeker, better version, so don't go to the hassle of taking it apart and painting it like I did. Just buy that new version. I'm looking forward to trying it out on our next van. Inlet must be higher than out. And this is awesome, it lines up with the factory mounting points on the Transit. Use blue Loctite on all of them. Lock washer and washer. Also, they include the M12 by 1.75 thread for the Ford factory mounting point. That's awesome. So we're gonna go with a big lock washer and a washer. Got the rear of the van lifted up on these ramps. That plus the lift kit makes this thing way off the floor. Easy to work under. There are really two main locations to put the compressor and condenser. So right here behind the rear differential is where I like to do it. We can see they added this special bracket to use these Ford factory mounting points there and there. And then same too on the other side there. This is where your spare tire would normally go. We've removed ours because it'll be mounted on the back door. But on a regular length, non-extended Transit, you'd have to remove this tire to be able to fit it in that location, I believe. The other common spot to mount it is beside the fuel tank, just on the driver's side of the van in there. So in terms of where we're gonna mount it, here's the rear differential right here. We're looking towards the back of the van. This is where the spare tire would normally go, and we're gonna be putting it right here. So between these cross members, there to there, using these bolts. I'm really happy how that turned out with those new brackets. Height-wise, you can see we're well off the ground here. Lots of clearance. We're about 10 inches higher than the bottom of the rear diff. We got the rock guard facing the front and the fans blowing to the back. In this orientation, it's going to disperse the heat better than if it was horizontal. It's because we got lots of airflow coming in the front, the hot air coming out the back. If we can keep the entire unit cooler, that's going to be more efficient and not draw as much power. First, I disconnected the rear diff vent hose and then held up the compressor housing. Note that you should not remove the compressor from the housing like I did here. Okay, now we'll go up to the larger one. Well done. These nylock nuts are 19 millimeter. Let's give you a better look at it. It's pretty good actually. As long as you mount it nice and high like this. And this is why I never should have removed the compressor from the bracket. It was an absolute headache getting it back on there, and I should have followed the instructions that said to leave it on the bracket. This is a very important bag. You want to make sure all your fittings are here. The larger one on the bottom right is the in. Smaller one goes on the top. For running the 2-inch ducting, I purchased this insulation from Home Depot and then cut it to size around the ducting so that we'd avoid any condensation buildup in the walls. Next up, I need to install the evaporator. So in terms of location, I'm going to do it under the bed here in the garage space, just in front of the big water tank. I planned it out so I have exactly enough room for the HVAC style evaporator. I do need a hole for the condensation drain, so I'm going to use a T, combine the two drain points, and then go down through the floor, and then have a large hole over in that corner for all my HVAC lines and hoses. Really close to the edge there. Basically just enough room to be able to squeeze those hoses on like that. And it's not too sharp of a corner there, so that should be good. This is my air intake, so I'm gonna have a vent on the door that's sliding back and forth here. So we have 4 2-inch ports on the front, and then we have a condensation drain, one on this side and one over here. These components, these pieces are included in the kit with these little clamps. So we're gonna have to add some of our own clamps. I'm gonna make a 90, and then I'm gonna tee it right near the middle, and that will go down through the floor. Fish. Just want a little bit more length, so I'm just going to add a bit of my own 1/2-inch braided vinyl tubing to go down out through the floor. Ouch. We're pretty much safe to drill anywhere here. We're going to use this PVC. It is 1 3/8, and so we're going to use this. I want it to be a pretty snug fit, 1 3/8. Now I'm going to drill a large hole for my hoses coming up to the evaporator. This is 2 3/8 PVC, so I'm going to use a 2 3/8 hole saw to hopefully get a pretty snug fit. Next, just use a bit of Flex Seal. You just get your finger wet. And we'll do the same thing on the bottom. Now I'm going to deal with these wires coming out of the compressor. The first wire loom we want to deal with is this one with the 6 small strands coming off it. This is our loom to the thermostat. So it's going to go up into my electrical area and all the way to the front of the van where my thermostat's going to be. This next white wire loom with the 6-pin connector on it goes to the evaporator inside the van. So I'm going to run it across, try and find a nice path for it. The last loom here, the black wire loom with the red wire coming out of it, is pretty simple. It connects to the power coming from the condenser. So we can just plug that in. We're going to install the wiring going to the compressor now. First thing is we want to shut off all the power. Make sure if your solar panels were on and your solar charge controller that all those breakers are off as well. You don't want alternate current coming into the system even though the actual battery's connection is off. First thing we want to do is install our 120 or 150 amp circuit breaker. I got a 150 amp version. So keep in mind we'll be coming from positive bus bar. Probably gonna come down over here, and I'll put my circuit breaker right in the corner there. You know what, I could probably run it, yeah, under that one. So like here. Feed this down through the hole. I've crimped my positive cables so they are ready. Oh, let's go. Wow, that's close. Put the biggest one on first, next largest, and then next, and last one. And I am adding the ground from the condenser while I'm at it. Got it. Wiring is done.
I decided to make a Y adapter so we could use all 4 AC ports, and I designed it here in Fusion 360.
Next up are the AC refrigerant lines. It's fairly straightforward. I went ahead and tore off the diagram portion because as you read through the manual, you can just go over to this side and say, okay, fitting number 5. Boom, fitting 5 is port 509, elbow with fill port. Go through, find part 509, and so on. You can also go off this. It does have the compressor or condenser in, out, dryer in, out, and so on. So there's a couple different things you can follow, but I think the easiest is just go off the manual and go off the diagram. The first ones that we're going to start with are for the evaporator. We also have 3 different hose sizes. So we've got 5/16, ½ inch, and 13/32. Again, it tells you in the manual which one to use at first. But we are going to start with the ½ inch and 5/16 for the evaporator. 50084 goes to A, which is the ½ inch hose. You take the Burgaflex connector and you put the cinch rings in, like so. Take your hose, perfect, so it's right flush at the end. The O-ring goes on the end that's going in the fitting, but on this side, we want to add some oil so that it slides on there well. Take the crimp tool and start on the end one. And then out, and then do the other one. Next one is evaporator in, using this fitting, and D, which is 5/16.
I like starting a trim and I thought it was so.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I guess I should have said.
Oh, dang. I think they're like super good, right? Just pull those caps off. This is evaporator out. Now we'll do evaporator in, which is fitting number 12. Just adding masking tape to cover the ends. And we'll root them. See, that works out great. It's like that. I have to do the whole thing again anyways. I'll leave some slack. Just a little bit. Now O-ring and oil. On to the next fitting here. I'm doing the condenser in, number 8, condenser in, 504. So this needs to go on compressor in, which is at the top. It's clearly marked. I got some wires up there. There we go. So it's kind of hiding up there in that little crevice. Pop this up. There we go. So there it is, and then we're gonna want to run it to the far side of the compressor, kind of over here. Compressor out. So just keep that in mind when you're running your hose there. Make sure the little black rubber plug comes out when you take it out. Next is 506, compressor out. Mark it. Again, I'll take a little bit extra. Feed it up above all this stuff. Once it's crimped. So that's the one right there. And this is an easy one. It's just going to condenser out. So the final two connections are going into and out of the dryer. They're going to be the trickiest as it's the most compact. And we want to try and keep the caps off for as little time as possible. Okay, in is this side. Oh, so that's not too bad. It is pretty clearly labeled. But we do want some extra in case the dryer ever needs to be moved. Something up like this. And then in like that. Got my mark. This is 515. So ideally I want that side dryer port off for as little time as possible. So it's that one right up in there. Ports off. Okay. One last one. Last one is 502. This is gonna go on a small 5/16 hose coming from the evaporator. And this is probably gonna be the hardest fitting to get on. It's the middle side of the dryer. Measure this first. And again, leave a bit extra. So I'll probably go up and around and like that. Hot tip. Use the other one to get the size. One more, I think one more good one. Okay. Whew. Got it. Now I just need to organize the wires and we should be good to go. If you're wondering how much hose I have left over, I'd say about 10 feet of each. So if you're doing your install all near the back of the van like I am, you'll have no trouble. Otherwise, just be mindful of how much you're using. And I actually just put that transition breather hose right back up above the compressor. Those are the M12 by 1.75 bolts that hold the condenser in on those custom brackets. And here you can see I've got my wire tucked up nice and high. The hose is going into the van over there. Come out. There's the compressor. Everything's tucked away. Tons of clearance. All my wiring going to the compressor. And then going up into the van there. Nicely secured. Last thing, put the little cap back on. The positive. And we should be ready to fill.
My turn to jump in and do some cable management and also seal up the hole at the bottom of the floor where the pipes from the AC drop down to under the van. So I'm going to use some caulking to seal that all up and then secure those hoses as well as the wire to that wheel well. It's not going anywhere. Because this hole is relatively large, I'm going to put some Baccarat in there in the middle and then sandwich it between sealant on the top and on the bottom of the van. Okay, so the Baccarat is in there, so I'm going to fill the rest with caulking. And then I've got my clamp on tight again. Okay, and the rest I'm going to do from the bottom of the van to make sure there are no gaps. Because I wasn't able to get to the back super well because of the wheel well. So from the bottom I'll be able to get a good perimeter as well.
So we connected those 6 wires to the thermostat and turned on the breaker and we're good to go with the air conditioning. So just to show you, it's a touch screen here, as well as you can go through the modes just with the mode button. So the first thing we want to do is go to the settings and just confirm that all the settings are correct. So we go here, system type, settings, and then system type. So here, analog on, 2-speed fan off. PWM fan should be on. Heat pump should be off. So it is a good thing we checked. And they include all this in the manual. So you want to keep the compressor on high. So then this QR code is just to connect with the app. Once you connect with the app, that'll go away and you can always bring it back if you want. So you can hear the fans on. There we go. So that's fan speed 2 and fan speed 3. So that's looking great. We get really good airflow out of this one, which is nice because it's closer up to the front. The vent out of the bench seat is the longest run, and it's the one that I used the 3D printed Y for, so I merged 2 ducts or 2 vents into the one. So that's great because we get a little bit more pressure at the longest run. And that front one cools off the dinette and front area of the van here, so I'm glad it has good airflow. And then on speed 3, we can just come and see that, you know, the evaporator is drawing roughly 12 amps. Obviously the compressor isn't running right now. I'm gonna wait to test that until the system is filled. Oh, that's a shot. So that's the pressure test, Quinn?
Yeah.
And then vacuum pump,
Yep.
and then fill.
Now we get the vacuum pump going.
So the system gets completely emptied, and then we charge it with the R1348. Yeah. Well, pretty sure that's what it was. Bring the temp down low enough so it runs, and then, let's see, there it goes. Feel cold?
Yeah.
And then on each side of the bed there.
Yeah, these are older. Closer to the unit.
So the unit is fully installed, we've got it charged up with refrigerant, and my electrical system is finished. So we can take a look at how much power does this unit really draw. So I've heated up the garage a little bit here. 50 degrees. So my current idle draw with lights and different things in the van is roughly 6 amps. So we'll go ahead and turn on the cooling. And I want to close the door so you can see the volume. So you can hear the compressor winding up. It's a variable speed compressor, so it doesn't just kick on fully or kick off, it gradually builds up. And if I didn't show already, this is where our vents are. So we've got some air blowing out of the vents. One on that side. And one on this side. In a perfect world, you would install the vents as high as possible because cold air is going to descend. Obviously hot air will rise. So we've kind of tried to do that in the bed area, but the only way we get our ducting to work is to have it under that bench seat. So see, I bumped the fan speeds up. So this is just the evaporator running, just the fans blowing, and on the top speed, we're now drawing roughly 6 amps. Turn it on, so the compressor's on. Up at the top here, we have our 3 fan speeds. So I'm going to shut everything off just to get a bit better test here. All the lights in the van are off. We are currently drawing 38 amps. So you can see it's ramped up a bit, bumped up to 45 amps. This is on the low setting. This unit's pretty much the same as previous versions in terms of power draw, but it does have the new Hush fans on the condenser, so I want to show you the volume levels both inside and outside the van. So this is on fan speed 3, currently drawing 47 amps. And this is without any insulated window covers on. I will say that using the Y on the ducting seems to have made a significant difference. It was quite loud before, just the force of the airflow blowing through the vents, so it's definitely better. All 3 vents. This one down here has good output for sure. Nice and cold, but nice and quiet. So I'm happy with that. So let's go check the decibel meter outside. Let's check the audio levels. You can hear it, but nothing that I would be concerned about if you're parked next to it, as long as your doors are closed. Not a big deal. I'll put on the screen what 73 decibels is comparable to.
I should mention I also plan to order their resistor kit for our next van, and that should reduce volume by another 5 decibels.
Definitely when you're inside the van, you hardly know that the compressor is going. I actually had to do a double take on the power draw there to make sure the compressor was actually on. When you're outside the van, you can notice it for sure if you're walking by and stuff, but not to the point that it's going to be an issue to someone parked next to you or in the next campsite. So you can see this thing could run for a really long time on our 800 amp hour battery bank. I mean, we're at 12 hours remaining on this. That's crazy. Keep in mind that my garage is currently 45 degrees, so the compressor is likely going to draw more power when the air temperature increases. Like in my previous video when the system was drawing around 90 amps when it was cooling the much hotter air in California. And that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. Feel free to leave any feedback or questions in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next one.